From lost archives of our founding, tall tales and myths of time long forgotten, legends of automatons, prosperous civilizations, and bizarre calamities, battles between gods and tricksters beyond your understanding. The Merchant's Land and Sea network of transmissions brings you Cantankerous Chronicles of the Grimmlands. Tonight's story, A Barrel of Tales.
Hello there, stranger. You caught me taking a minor spell under the stars. What? Don't look too surprised now. I'm just as shocked as you. Wasn't expecting my slumber to be so rudely interrupted. And judging by your hood and mask, waking me up wasn't part of the docket. Hoping to pilfer that barrel there? Oh, tough luck, partner. There's nothing but trouble. Try to warn you.
Traveling alone doesn't leave me much room for relaxation.
So when I need some shut-eye, the barrel takes care of itself, as you clearly saw. Oh, don't be so down on yourself. You ain't the first to try and open the cookie jar. Suppose I'll figure out what to do with you in the morning. Naming my beauty sleepy here, so try and stay quiet.
Would you knock that off? It's distracting. Good grace. First you don't respect personal property, and now personal rest. No good vermin.
It's not gonna work, you know. It's dwarfin made. Same type used to hold some big mutt near the nose tree. You know, the really big one by Falvatica. Point is, you are trapped. So stop making noise, please. Great. Now you got me all riled up. Can't even muster the strength to snooze now. Are you happy? I'm sorry. I've been on the road for a few days now, and missing sleep gets me in a real sour mood. Granted, you did try and steal my belongings, but that doesn't mean I should have snapped at you in such a manner. Well, since I got you here, and neither of us planning on counting buzz lambs, let's conversate for now. Sun up ain't for another few hours, and you don't seem to be having much of a choice. Granted, I can't imagine anyone would be in the mood to travel out in this desert after finding out the well has dried up. Say, how do you feel about stories? I'm a traveling merchant of sorts, so I see many wacky and strange phenomena out on the road. I tend to travel solo, so, I share with those willing to listen. If you don't mind indulging this old bot, I might have a story that piques your interest. Like I said, you ain't the first to try and steal from me. No. Now that dishonor goes to a charlatan named Crawlinger. It was about 30 or 40 decades ago. I was still but a greenhorn in the trading business. Before that, I had spent my early assembly time as a full-time manufacturer. And that industry takes toll on you when you're the only machine making the actual product. After a brief contract negotiation with my former boss, I thought it was high time I began my own company, so I emptied out my workstation, compacted myself into more of a travel-sized biped, and set out to make my riches. We were located out in the deep jungle of Berthelkelse. Have you ever been there? Lovely place. Lush, green, and plentiful in insectoids. The large kind, not these dust crawlers hacking down here in the gravel. Oh no. Y'all ever seen the beetle size of a spittoon? But it was home. Over there, the homes are built on tree line. People there prefer it. Helps them get the youngins more accustomed to the heights, for when it's the time to leave the nest. Don't get many large cities out here like in Joglada. There maybe was a total of about 10 major ones. In other words, the eastern alley of the JCU. Huh? Huh? Oh, you'll get it eventually. Back to me. Lumber was plentiful, and Bossman made a fortune making tables, kitchenware, and rifle stocks. Ever heard of Ramones? Yep, that was us. Needless to say, traversing heavy Amazon terrain ain't easy when all you have is a nice supply of wooden ladles and the blunt part of a rifle. They at least made decent firewood. I was stuck there for years before finding civilization. I actually only went round back to the factory once. I almost had second thoughts about returning, but some choices were permanent. I eventually reached the town. Small little community, not much in the way of business, just houses. I approached them to introduce myself, and once the screaming and bashing stopped, we bartered for anything I could use. They had very little money, so anything I could have tried to sell them would have been for naught. This one's got me a good trade for a dark green rain jacket. You know, the long ones you see the shoremen wear. I left that factory with what I could carry, but not much in the sense of protection. Building was my only set of clothes, believe it or not. So as you can imagine, the humid jungle air and fauna weren't too kind on my gears. Rifle stocks don't mean squat when you're missing 8% of the tool. But you work with wood long enough, you get creative with how to use it. A couple of tables made out of stocks later, and I got some grease. It would move the joints a little better. They didn't need food, so I offered them physical services in exchange for gas. Fixing a roof here, move a truck there, help kill a blue-spotted tiger. I had no use for it, so I let them keep it. Well, everything except school. One of the kids put on my head as a helmet. Thought I might as well keep it as protection. It was about 2.5 weeks until I managed to get enough fuel to get me to a bigger town. I bid the locals farewell and made my way forward. The walk was rough, the weather still murky, and the local wildlife curious. Followed the road, but in the trees best I could, just to not draw any attention from passing cars. Judging by my previous interaction with the locals, it was best to stay out of sight for the time being. Surprisingly, it was easy to pass off as scrap metal and trash. Baffled, no one tried to sell me to a scrapyard. Rust helps plenty, I suppose. After 2, maybe 4 days, I made it to San Gaspar Formes, largest industrial metropolis on this side of the Bertho. Not exactly the tourist location like some of the other places there. For me, it was exactly the place I needed to be. The city only started its big economic boom later than some of the earlier colonies, and maybe 2 decades before the great nature storm we had. But I'll be if they didn't make up for lost time. Towering concrete and metal giants resembling trees. Most had color on them, but the architecture will leave you wondering if you were in a past era. It originally started as a missionary colony back in its infancy, so most of the historical buildings are the churches. The place is still very religious despite its business and work being the driving force for the population. Though the younger generations worship, what do they call it, Xiabre, while the elders worship the missionary god of the prophet of the broken body. Oh man, I don't remember my days dealing with the church. I'll say that for another day. Now where was I? Oh right. So I had finally arrived in San Gaspar, slums. Yeah, again, low profile, so the rundown area is made for the perfect scouting location of a temporary base of operations. Didn't take long for me to find an abandoned warehouse. Needed something I was familiar with at least. Luckily, the previous tenants left all their belongings when vacating the premises. The building used to be a battery assembly plant. Nothing too outlandish. Just standard ones for remotes and phones, that sort. Real shame they didn't produce larger ones. Or just converted myself to an eco model instead of having to siphon gas out of some of the police cars. Oh, was that a reaction? Figured you dozed off halfway. I was online though. For 3 weeks I was known as Phantasma Prateado. Something like that. Eventually I stockpiled enough to keep me going for a month. Fixing the factory became my goal. I was going to revive this corpse from the dead, even if it killed me. And it almost did. You see, while all the equipment stayed, time had not been kind to it. For every spin gear, there were wires chewed through. For every lubricated axle, there was copper missing from the infrastructure. I had a dilemma in my hands. I needed repairs done, but for that I needed money. But I needed repairs to make money. You see my dilemma? But there was another option. If you paid attention, you remember I was a walking factory floor. Boss used to have this, let's call it matter compressor of sorts. We used it to ship extremely large orders in our little box trucks. The compressor took most of the budget to buy, so the boss man skimped out on the delivery system. Well, when I made my grandiose departure, I took it upon myself to collect my pension package, including the compressor, which was built into me. Looking at this disheveled building, I felt empathetic towards it. And seeing as I was short in cash, there was only one option I could take. So I put my grease, servo, and gears into that place. By the time it was in usable shape, I was nothing but a jack in the box with limbs. But it was worth it, looking upon my handiwork. And with less body to move, the gas reserve went from a month's supply to 4. It took me about 2.5 months from my arrival to San Gasgri to finish repairing the place. So I went to the basement, pulled the main breaker, and got that show on the road. Crickets. Funny thing about abandoned buildings, the city stops giving it electricity. There was a brief fit of rage after realizing I should have checked that. After I composed myself, I made my way to the main office. The computer there was still in decent condition. After some jury rigging, I managed to use my gas engine to help power the machine. This was an old hardwire model, so it connected to some old city servers for internet connection. Most large company buildings had to make the switch around 3085 after the Sharkable attack of 2099. I found 3 major bits of information. 1. This company went kaput about 40 years prior. 2. The building was condemned by the city 35 years ago after some other company tried to rebuild it, but scrapped the project after issues with some of the locals arose. And 3. It would cost over $30,000 just to get the power back on. I was distraught, to say the least. But no one knew I was there, so I had time to plan what to do next. That was until I met the reason why that company pulled out. That was when I met Crawlinja. Well, I'll be. We better reminiscing on that. Dawn breaks upon us. Well then, I appreciate all the company, stranger, but this is where we part ways. Oh, don't think I forgot how we began this little encounter. I truly appreciate you listening to my tale, but a no good thief is still a no good thief. I'll do you a favor and leave this. Consider us even, partner. No, what are you doing? You realize I'm not a mechanic. You'll break your teeth. Okay, now you really... let go! How strong is your body? Are you part croc? Alright, I see where this is going. Now, I'm not gonna let you off scot-free, but... I can take you with me. At least until we reach the Dryad Valley. Oh, did I not mention that's where I was going? Oh, whoops. But, seeing as you're so excited to not dry out in the desert, it looks like you'll get to listen to the rest of my tale. How does that sound? Perfect. Let's get a move on then.